A family drowning in grief after their son's death thought nothing could heal them until a stormy night brought a trembling, half-dead cat to their door. They called him Shadow, but as they fought to save him, they discovered it wasn't the cat who needed rescuing, it was them. Before we dive in, let us know in the comments, what time is it and where are you watching from? Let's start. In a quiet suburban neighborhood, a small family, Mark, 38, his wife Elena, 35, and their 8-year-old daughter Lily, lived a routine life shadowed by grief. A year earlier, Lily's older brother Noah had died in an accident, leaving the family broken and silent. Elena stopped painting, Mark buried himself in work, and Lily hadn't smiled in months. Noah had been 10. He'd been running across the street after a paper airplane laughing, and the world folded in a single instant. Screeching brakes, a wet thud, then the hospital lights, and the long, stupid nights after. Mark remembers the smell of antiseptic so clearly he can't breathe if he thinks about it for too long. Elena remembers the way Noah used to smear paint across her palette and laugh when she pretended to scold him. Lily remembers Noah's hand in hers, small and warm, and how he used to tuck her hair behind her ear with his thumb. No one talks about how they found Noah's backpack by the curb. No one explains to Lily what accident means without crying. For a year, the house was a museum of silence. Elena's easel sat like a guilty thing in the corner, dried paint crusted on the tray, her brushes stiff and useless. Mark slept with the TV low, pretending meetings were important enough to keep him away. He took calls in the car because the living room felt too hollow. Lily learned to whisper. She'd learned to be small as a mouse, so the rest of them wouldn't notice the empty place at the table. Then the storm came. Lily heard a sound behind the bins, weak, thin as a thread. She pressed her face to the back door and listened. It sounded like a voice trying to get out of something that didn't belong to it. The house had trained her ears. She could tell when the world was about to break again. "Dad," she said softly, "there's something outside." Mark didn't look up. "Probably rats." "Go back to bed." He had that tired edge in his voice that made Lily's stomach hollow. Elena's footsteps were slow as she came to the door, her hair in a messy knot. Lily didn't wait. She slipped her bare feet into slippers and opened the door. Rain hit her face like a slap. Behind the garbage bins, a shape moved. It was a cat at the edge of being, soaking wet, matted fur hanging in tufts, more pink skin than hair. Its eyes were a bright, eerie green, too big, like someone had left the bulbs on, and it trembled with every breath. Ribs showed under the sodden fur. It hissed when Mark reached for it, a small, frightened sound like a broken toy. "Jesus," Mark said, the word barely a whisper. He stooped and offered a piece of the sandwich he'd shoved into his pocket that morning, a thin strip of bread with meat. The cat sniffed, coughed, but didn't take it. Lily moved like she had been trained by gentleness. She wrapped her old blanket around the creature as if it were the most precious thing in the world and cradled it to her chest. "You're coming home with me," she told it, as if she could order the world to obey. Elena's face was a mixture of horror and a mother's exhausted calculation. "Lily, put that down. It's filthy. It could have rabies." Her voice had lost its color, the same voice that used to hum while she painted landscapes. "The neighbors say it's cursed," someone from next door had said once, when they'd found a mangy raccoon months back. "Looks like a demon's face." People like stories. People like to point fingers instead of hands. "It's not cursed," Lily snapped, glaring at the darkness. "It's lonely?" Mark glanced at his daughter and then at the animal. He should have let logic win. Pets are expenses, disease risks, more grief if they die. He should have left it outside. Instead, he felt a flicker of something he couldn't name. The same hollow that had taken Noah. He swallowed and said, "Okay, in. But we keep it off the furniture. We close the door. And if it's sick, we deal with it tomorrow. No sentimental bullshit." They carried it inside on an old towel. Up close, the cat smelled like wet cardboard and metal. Its tail was almost bare. Elena's hands hovered. She wanted to hand it to Mark and march back to the safety of the kitchen. Instead, she wrapped it in another towel, fingers trembling. "What will we even call it?" she asked, half to herself. Lily touched the cat's head and felt the tiny, frantic pulse. "Shadow," she said, "because he hides." That night, Lily refused to leave his side. She fed him warm milk with a spoon, though Mark kept telling her not to feed milk to cats, and she snapped back at him like a little person who had practiced being brave. Shadow's breathing was shallow. He refused food at first. He was small enough that any sound could frighten him. Sometimes he hissed at Mark, then collapsed. "Mom, he's burning up," Lily whispered sometime after midnight, the lamp casting a sickly light. Elena checked Shadow, and the pads of her fingers came away hot. "He's got a fever." "God damn it," Mark muttered, waking fully. He had not planned on this. He had arranged his life to avoid nights like this. Hospital corridors, the smell of bleach, the helplessness. He had done his grief in spreadsheets and email chains, and now a cat, a mangy, stinking, ragged cat, threatened to blow everything open. Lily cried quietly, the way she had cried the day they brought Noah's things home. "Please," she said, "please don't let him die." Elena's face collapsed. For a second, she looked 20 again, and not like someone hollowed out by mourning. "We can't leave him," she said. "We can't." The words were more command than plea. It was like Noah's ghost had taken the wheel and steered them together. They tried everything they could that night. Warm compresses, towels, whispering songs Noah had liked, little scraps of family ritual to hold the edges together. Mark called work and lied about a plumbing emergency. Elena found one of Noah's crayons and, after a long, hesitant breath, made a rough, clumsy sketch of Shadow curled next to Lily's scribbles. The house smelled, for the first time in months, like two people trying to fix something. Morning came hard and gray. Shadow had not eaten. He tossed his head when Lily tried to tempt him with meat, and a dry cough shook his thin body. His eyes, once furious and wild, now looked like an old man's when he watched Lily. "We can't keep pretending," Mark said, his voice tight. "We need a vet." "If this is something contagious," Lily's hands tightened on the blanket. "We'll go," she said. Her voice was small, but steady. "Please, don't let him die here." Elena stepped forward. She looked at Mark like she had always wanted to look at him after Noah, with accusation and demand. "You said you'd be here," she said. "We're going." Now there was a hardness there that had not been since before Noah died, the kind that would not be flinched away. Mark moved because he was a man who knew how to move when necessary. He scooped Shadow gently, his fingers careful as if handling a child. "We'll call Dr. Alvarez," he said. "Get the carrier." "Cash, don't say anything to the neighbors. I don't want them praying over him or whatever." Lily nodded, face wet. "He stayed with me when I cried about Noah," she whispered. "He's not just an animal." They put Shadow into the carrier, towels around him, Lily's blanket over the top. The engine turned over, and the whole house seemed to hold its breath. Elena took Noah's old hat from the hook and slipped it into the car without thinking, like talisman or apology. As Mark drove, hands white on the wheel, Elena sat in the passenger seat, Lily curled next to her, humming a tune she used to sing to Noah. Shadow lay in the carrier, small and trembling, and every time Lily spoke to him his ears flicked. They pulled out into the rain, headlights cutting through the dark, and for the first time in a long time the three of them were a small, brittle unit heading toward a place that might not fix everything, but might save one small thing enough to make a reason to keep trying. They decided, vet now, no more waiting. The drive felt endless. The wipers beat against the windshield like a ticking clock, faster, faster, then slow again when Mark stopped at red lights he barely saw. Lily's hands never left the carrier. Her lips moved silently, maybe a prayer, maybe just the rhythm of worry. "Mom, will he be okay?" she whispered. Elena turned in her seat, eyes rimmed with red. "We'll let the doctor see first, sweetheart. He'll fix him, right?" Elena wanted to say yes. Instead, she reached across and squeezed Lily's knee. "We're trying." Mark didn't speak. The reflection of the road light slid across his face, making him look older than he was. In the rearview mirror, he caught sight of Lily hugging that carrier and thought of the day Noah was in the ambulance. His small hand slipping away, the sound of tires on wet asphalt. The same sound now, the same helplessness. When they reached Dr. Alvarez's clinic, it was still early morning. The sign flickered in the rain. A sleepy vet tech opened the door, blinking at the sight of the soaked family. "Emergency?" she asked. "Yes," Elena said. "Our cat. He's burning with fever." "Please, we just found him. They carried Shadow in." The clinic smelled of antiseptic and fear. The doctor, a tall woman in her 40s, met them in scrubs with coffee still in her hand. "Set him here," she said softly. Mark placed the carrier on the table. Shadow didn't move. His breathing came in short, broken bursts. "How long has he been like this?" the vet asked. "A night," Mark said. "We found him yesterday." He was half dead. The vet examined him. Thermometer, stethoscope, a quick press of her fingers along his ribs. "He's severely dehydrated. Infection, possible pneumonia. He's not a stray anymore, is he?" Lily shook her head fiercely. "He's ours." The vet gave a small smile. "Then he'll need treatment. Fluids, antibiotics, warmth. But he's fragile. You should be ready for any outcome." Lily's lip trembled. "Please don't let him die." "We'll do what we can." They waited in the corner while Shadow was placed on a heating pad, an IV threaded into his thin leg. The room was quiet, except for the hum of machines and Lily's muffled sniffles. Elena held her daughter close. Mark sat stiff, elbows on knees, staring at the floor. "He reminds me of Noah," Lily murmured suddenly. "He doesn't give up." Elena's throat closed. She turned to Mark. "She's right." Mark looked away. "Don't start." "Start what?" "This guilt thing." "We couldn't save Noah." Elena's eyes filled. "But maybe we can save something else." Lily looked between them, tears streaking her cheeks. "Stop fighting," she said softly. "He's listening." The vet returned after a long silence. "He's stabilizing," she said. "Still weak, but his breathing's evening out. If he makes it through the day, he'll have a chance." Lily's eyes brightened for the first time in months. Can we stay?" "You can stay for a while," the vet said gently. "He'll need rest, and so will you." They stayed all day. Lily refused to leave the glass window looking into the recovery room. Shadow lay wrapped in blankets, a tiny oxygen tube near his face. Every time his chest rose, she whispered, "Good boy." Mark went to get food, but couldn't eat. He sat in the car and stared at his hands until the rain stopped. He thought about the way Lily had shouted at him, "You don't care?" and how true it had sounded. Maybe he hadn't cared, not really, not since Noah. It was easier not to feel. But this tiny thing had dragged them back into feeling again, whether he wanted it or not. When he returned, Elena was sketching on a napkin. Shadow, the blanket, the reflection of Lily's face in the glass. "You're painting again," Mark said quietly. "It's just lines." "It's more than lines." Their eyes met. For a second there was warmth. Awkward, fragile, but real. By evening the vet came out again, smiling faintly. "He's a fighter." Temperature's down. He tried to stand. Lily jumped up. "Can I see him?" "Just for a minute." Inside the small room, the cat turned his head weakly. His eyes found Lily's voice before anything else. She reached through the cage bars, touching his paw gently. "I told you, Shadow." "You're safe." The cat made a low, rasping purr, the sound of life coming back. Elena covered her mouth, tears spilling freely. Mark turned away, blinking hard. Days passed. They visited daily, bringing tiny treats, toys, even one of Noah's old shirts for the smell of home. Shadow began eating on his own, then walking again. His fur grew softer, the bald patches slowly filling in. The vet smiled every time they came. "I think he's decided to live," she said. A week later, they brought him home. The sun was out for the first time in days. Lily opened the carrier on the living room rug. Shadow stepped out carefully, sniffing the corners as if memorizing the air. Then, to everyone's shock, he walked straight to Noah's framed photo on the shelf and sat beneath it, curling his tail around his paws. Elena's breath caught. "Mark?" He nodded slowly. "Yeah, I see it." Lily knelt beside Shadow. He found his spot. That night, when Mark tucked Lily in, she whispered, "Do you think Noah sent him?" Mark smiled faintly. "I think sometimes love finds its way back, just in different shapes." She nodded sleepily. "Then we'll keep him forever." Downstairs, Elena stood at the easel. For the first time in a year, she painted until dawn. Lily's smile, Shadow's green eyes, and a faint outline of Noah in the background, laughing. Months later, the house looked different. Laughter returned like sunlight through cracked blinds. Mark cooked breakfast again. Elena sold her first painting in years, titled Shadow and the Light. And Lily, every morning before school, whispered the same words at the door. "Be good, okay?" Shadow followed her everywhere, to the bus stop, to the garden, to the porch where they first met. Sometimes he'd sit there on rainy days, staring at the road, his tail curled around Noah's old toy car they'd placed near his bed. He wasn't cursed. He was the cure. One evening, as the sunset turned the street gold, Mark sat on the porch steps with Elena beside him. Shadow slept on Lily's lap, purring softly. Elena whispered, "We thought we were saving him." Mark nodded. "Turns out he saved us." Lily smiled without looking up, stroking the cat's fur. "He's family now." The air was warm, and for once, silence didn't hurt. If Shadow's story touched your heart, don't leave without showing some love, like comment where you're watching from, and share this to remind the world. Sometimes the ones we save end up saving us.